The house on Redwood Lane had been perfect when Emma and David Carter bought it 6 years ago, a 4-bedroom suburban dream, complete with a sprawling backyard, a white picket fence, and a modern kitchen, all within the prestigious gated community of Willow Creek Estates. Back then, it had felt like a fresh start, a place where they could build a future, but now they wanted out. David's company had offered him a high-paying job in Seattle, and though they had grown attached to their home, the opportunity was too good to pass up. Selling the house should have been easy. Willow Creek was known for its high property values, and homes here rarely stayed on the market for long. The realtor, Lisa Moore, was confident they'd get multiple offers within days, and she was right. Within 48 hours of listing, they had 3 serious buyers. Emma and David celebrated with wine that evening, relieved at how smoothly everything was going. That was until the first buyer backed out without warning. Lisa called early the next morning. I don't know how to say this, but the buyer changed his mind. Emma frowned. What? Why? Lisa hesitated. He didn't say. Just cancelled last minute. No explanation. David brushed it off. Buyers get cold feet all the time. But then it happened again. The second buyer, an out-of-state doctor, seemed even more eager than the first. He toured the house, spoke about renovations, even measured for new furniture. Then, just before finalizing the sale, he vanished. No phone calls, no mails, just a single vague message. I'm sorry, I can't buy this house. Please don't contact me again. Emma's stomach churned. Something wasn't right. Lisa sounded shaken when she called. This isn't normal. I've never had this happen twice in a row. David was frustrated but still hopeful. It's bad luck, that's all. We'll get another buyer. Then came the third attempt. A young couple, Olivia and Jake Turner, put in an offer. They were newlyweds, excited to start their family. They even paid for the home inspection up front. Then, just 3 days before closing, Lisa called again. Her voice was tense. They're out. David slammed his fist on the kitchen counter. This is ridiculous. What reason did they give? Lisa hesitated for a long moment before answering. They said they didn't feel safe. A chill crawled up Emma's spine. Safe? What does that mean? Lisa lowered her voice. They wouldn't say. They just looked scared. 2. The HOA's grip on the neighborhood. That night, Emma and David sat at the kitchen table going over every possible reason why buyers kept pulling out. They checked the inspection reports. No mold. No foundation issues. No structural damage. They reviewed their property history. No violent crimes. No previous complaints. No deaths in the house. So what the hell was going on? Then, at exactly midnight, they heard it. A soft rustling noise outside the front door. Emma stiffened. Did you hear that? David nodded, grabbing his phone to check the security camera. But before he could open the app, something slipped through the mail slot. A single sheet of paper, folded neatly. Emma hesitated before picking it up. Her blood ran cold when she read the words written in jagged black ink, "You can never leave." David yanked open the door, storming onto the front porch. No one was there. The street was silent, empty. The next morning, they marched into the HOA office, determined to get answers. The office was eerily quiet, the air thick with the scent of polished wood and old paper. Behind the front desk sat Margaret Walters, the HOA president, an older woman with sharp blue eyes and a perpetual, unsettling smile. "Ah, the Carters," she greeted, folding her hands neatly on the desk. "How can I help you?" David slammed the anonymous note on the counter. We got this last night. Any idea who sent it? Margaret barely glanced at the paper. Her smile didn't waver. I wouldn't worry about it, she said lightly. These things happen. Emma frowned. These things happen. Notes? Threatening us? Margaret gave a small, dismissive wave. Willow Creek is a very special community. People here don't like change. David clenched his jaw. We're selling our house whether they like it or not. Margaret finally leaned forward, her expression darkening. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Emma's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Margaret sighed, as if explaining something to a child. When you moved into Willow Creek, you signed a contract. That contract states that all home sales must be approved by the HOA. David narrowed his eyes. That can't be legal. Margaret tilted her head. It's enforceable, and I can assure you we will not approve your sale. Emma felt a wave of nausea. Why? What reason could you possibly have? Margaret's blue eyes locked onto hers. Because the house won't let you leave. 3. The first signs of something wrong. That night, Emma barely slept. Every sound outside felt like a threat. At 3 a.m., the motion alert from there. This is ridiculous. They can't just refuse to approve our sale. Emma sat next to him, staring at the HOA contract on her laptop screen. Every page was filled with complex legal jargon, but one section stood out in bold. Any and all sales of property in Willow Creek Estates must be approved by the Homeowners Association. Failure to comply will result in consequences as outlined by the community regulations. Emma's voice was quiet. We signed this. We agreed to it. David shook his head. We agreed to follow normal HOA rules. We never agreed to be trapped here. The worst part, their realtor, Lisa, didn't seem surprised. I've seen this before, she admitted when Emma called her the next day. Emma's breath hitched. What do you mean? Lisa hesitated. A few years ago, there was another family, the Morrisons. They tried to sell. Buyers kept backing out just like yours. Then, one day, they just stopped trying. They still live there, but I never see them anymore. A shiver ran through Emma's body. What are you saying? Lisa lowered her voice. I think they gave up. And I think something made them give up. 2. The neighbor's warning. That evening, Emma and David decided to go door to door and talk to their neighbors. Maybe someone else had tried to leave. Maybe someone could tell them what was really going on. But as they walked through the quiet, eerily perfect neighborhood, something became clear. No one wanted to talk. Most people barely opened their doors. Some glanced around nervously before whispering, "You should stop asking questions." One elderly man, Mr. Dawson, pulled David aside. His hands trembled. His eyes darted round like he was being watched. I tried to move once, he murmured. Emma leaned in. What happened? His voice dropped to a whisper. The house wouldn't let me. David frowned. That doesn't make any sense. Mr. Dawson laughed bitterly. It will. Then he shut the door without another word. 3. The house is alive. That night, they tried one last time to list the house online. Emma sat in front of her laptop, filling out the listing details. She clicked Save, and the screen glitched. The page refreshed. The listing was gone. David tried his phone. Same result. What the hell? David muttered. Emma took a shaky breath. It's like something doesn't want us to sell. Then the lights flickered. Emma's breath hitched. Did you see that? David nodded slowly. The house creaked. A long, low groan, like something shifting deep inside the walls. Then, from upstairs, a loud crash. David grabbed the baseball bat. "Stay here." Emma clutched his arm. "No, we go together." They moved slowly up the stairs, their hearts pounding. They stepped into the hallway and froze. The family photos lining the walls had fallen, but not randomly. They had been rearranged. All their pictures were now upside down. A cold chill ran through Emma's veins. "David, I think the house is alive." The voices in the walls. That night, Emma barely slept. She kept jerking awake, convinced she heard something. Then, at 3:15 a.m., she heard it, a whispering voice, soft, faint, coming from inside the walls. She sat up in bed, heart hammering. The whispering continued, faint, indistinct. But then she recognized something horrifying. It was saying their names. "Emma, David." Her blood ran cold. She shook David awake. "Listen." But the moment he opened his eyes, the whispering stopped. David sat up, rubbing his temples. "I don't hear anything." Emma's pulse pounded. It was saying our names from inside the walls. David sighed. "You're just tired, stressed. This place is getting to us." Emma knew what she heard, and deep down, she knew the house was listening. The shadow in the hallway. The next night they set up cameras. They needed proof of what was happening. Emma placed one in the hallway, one in the living room, and one in their bedroom. At exactly 3 a.m., an alert buzzed on Emma's phone. Motion detected. She sat up instantly, grabbing her phone. The hallway camera feed opened, and Emma stopped breathing. A dark shadow moved across the hallway, slow, deliberate. It had no shape, no form, just shifting darkness. Then, without warning, it turned toward the camera. Emma's stomach plummeted. It had no face, but it was looking directly at them. Then, the camera feed cut to static. Emma screamed. David snapped awake. "What? What happened?" Emma pointed at the phone, her hands shaking. "There was something in the hallway. It saw us." David grabbed the baseball bat and rushed to the door. Emma followed, her heart pounding. They stepped into the hallway and froze. The air was ice cold. The house felt different. Wrong. Then, a whisper, right behind them. "You can never leave." Emma and David spun around. Nothing was there, just the hallway. Empty. But something had changed. The house wasn't just stopping them from leaving. It was trying to keep them forever. "We have to go. I don't care what the HOA says." Emma nodded. "I agree. I don't care if we have to abandon the house. She stopped. A slow, wet sound echoed through the living room. A drip. Then another. Then a steady trickling. Emma turned toward the wall, and her blood ran cold. A thick, dark red liquid was seeping from the walls. It oozed down in slow, viscous streaks. The smell of copper and decay filled the air. David stumbled backward. "What the hell?" Then the lights flickered violently. A deep groaning noise shuddered through the house, like something alive breathing through the walls. Emma screamed as the red liquid gushed faster, spreading across the floor like an open wound. Then, a voice. A deep, guttural whisper. "You can never leave." The house shook violently, furniture rattling, picture frames crashing to the ground. David grabbed Emma's hand. "We're leaving. Now." They bolted for the door. David grabbed the handle and yanked. Locked. He twisted harder. "It won't open." Emma ran to the windows, trying to pry them open. They wouldn't budge. The house wouldn't let them out. Emma turned back toward the living room. The blood was gone. The walls were clean. No sign that anything had happened. David panted, his hands shaking. "Tell me you saw that." Emma nodded, tears in her eyes. "We are trapped." 2. The house remembers everyone. The next morning, Emma and David searched for answers. They went to the local archives. digging through old records on their house. That's when they found it. A newspaper article from 1954. Murder, suicide, shocks Willow Creek. Emma's breath hitched as she read. Local couple Richard and Marla Holloway were found dead inside their home on Redwood Lane. Authorities believe Richard, suffering from paranoia, murdered his wife before taking his own life. Witnesses claim he often spoke of whispers in the walls and an unseen force preventing them from leaving. David's hands tightened on the paper. Oh my God. Emma swallowed. It's the same house, David. The house killed them. David stood abruptly. We need to talk to someone who lived here before us. That's when Emma remembered. The Morrisons. 3. The Morrisons' secret. The Morrisons' house sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, a grey, lifeless structure with curtains always drawn. Emma knocked once. No answer. She knocked again, louder. The door cracked open, revealing a pale, frightened woman. Mrs. Morrison. Please, Emma begged, tell us what's happening. The woman's eyes were hollow, her voice barely a whisper. You have to stop fighting it. David frowned. What does that mean? Mrs. Morrison's voice trembled. The house doesn't want to be sold. It chooses who stays. And once it chooses you, it never lets go. Emma's stomach churned. You tried to leave, didn't you? Mrs. Morrison's lips quivered. Yes, and it punished us. She lifted her hand, revealing 3 missing fingers. Emma gasped. What happened? Mrs. Morrison's eyes filled with terror. The house takes what it wants. She slammed the door shut. Emma and David stood frozen, their breath shaky. David swallowed hard. We're next, aren't we? Emma couldn't answer, because she already knew the truth. Yes, they were next. 4. The ghost in the basement. That night, Emma woke up to whispers, not outside, not in the walls, but right next to her ear. Emma. Run. She jolted awake, gasping. David snored beside her, unaware. But something was wrong. The air was too still. A heavy, suffocating silence filled the room. Then, the closet door creaked open. Emma's breath caught. A shadowy figure stood inside, tall, motionless, watching. Emma froze in terror. David, she whispered. Wake up. But David didn't move. The shadow stepped forward, and Emma saw its face. It was Marla Holloway, the murdered woman from 1954. Her face was twisted in agony, her mouth stitched shut. She reached out a hand, and the bedroom plunged into darkness. 5. The final warning. Emma woke up screaming. David shook her awake. Emma, it was just a dream. But Emma knew better. It wasn't a dream. She grabbed David's hands, her pulse racing. We have to leave. We have to get out before the house kills us. David nodded. We leave tonight. Emma turned to pack, but something was waiting for them. A message, scratched into the bedroom mirror. Deep claw marks forming 4 chilling words. The house has chosen. Emma's breath came ragged. David took a step back, his face drained of color. We have to go. Now. They grabbed their bags and ran downstairs. David grabbed the front door handle, and it twisted on its own. The door swung open. For the first time, the house was letting them go, but Emma hesitated. Something was wrong. David stepped onto the porch and screamed. His feet sank into the ground, not into soil, into something else. The earth turned black and sticky, pulling him down. Emma grabbed his arm. David. But the house wasn't letting them go. It was swallowing him whole. David screamed, and the door slammed shut. Emma stood alone. Emma pounded on the front door. David. David. No response. The porch was empty. The ground had returned to normal. No black tar. No signs that David had ever been there. Her chest heaved. Number. No, no, no. She ran through the house, tearing through every room. David, where are you? But there was only silence. Then, from the basement, a thump. Emma froze. Another thump. Her stomach churned. The air turned heavy, suffocating. Something was down there, or someone. Emma grabbed the flashlight and stepped toward the basement door. The handle was ice cold. Her heart hammered. Then, a whisper from the darkness. Emma, help me. David. Her breath caught. She yanked open the door. A wave of rotten, damp air rushed up to meet her. Emma took a deep breath and stepped into the dark. The basement of the dead. The basement stairs creaked beneath her weight. Her flashlight flickered. David? She called, voice shaking. Nothing. She moved deeper. The walls were covered in scratches, deep gouges that looked like fingernail marks. Emma's pulse pounded. Then, her flashlight flickered again, and for a split second, she saw them. Dozens of figures, pale, hollow-eyed, standing in the shadows, watching. Emma stumbled backward, biting down a scream. The flashlight blinked again, and they were gone. But the scratching started, a soft, relentless scraping from inside the walls, like something buried alive, trying to get out. Emma pressed forward. David, where are you? Then, a hand shot out of the darkness and grabbed her wrist. Emma screamed, but then she saw who it was. David. His skin was pale, his eyes wide with terror. Emma, it's the house. It's trying to take me. She grabbed his arms. We're getting out of here. But as she pulled him up, the walls screamed. 3. The house reveals its true face. A violent shudder rippled through the basement. The floor split open, revealing a gaping hole. Emma stumbled back, and then something crawled out. Not human, not alive. A grotesque, shifting mass of limbs, faces, and rotting flesh. It groaned, a sound like 1,000 voices crying out in agony. Emma's blood ran cold. She understood now. The house was alive. It had been feeding for decades, swallowing its owners, keeping their souls trapped inside. Emma grabbed David's arm. Run! They sprinted up the basement stairs, but the door slammed shut. The house wouldn't let them go. A voice thundered through the walls. You belong to me. The lights burst. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. And then the shadows moved. Dark, twisting hands reached out, grabbing for them. Emma screamed. Then David shoved her forward. Emma, go! Not without you, she cried, but David shook his head. It wants me, Emma. If you stay, it'll take you too. The house shuddered. The darkness wrapped around David's ankles. I love you, he shouted before the shadows dragged him down. Emma screamed, and the door burst open. She fell forward, and the house spit her out. She landed hard on the porch. The door slammed shut behind her. The house was silent. David was gone, and she was alone. 4. The final goodbye. Emma stayed on the porch for hours, waiting, hoping, but David never came back. As dawn broke, the house stood still, like nothing had happened, like it had never even taken him. Emma choked on a sob. She had lost him. David was part of the house now, and there was nothing she could do. Or was there? Her jaw clenched. No, she wouldn't let this happen again. She got up, walked to the gasoline tank in the garage, walked back to the front porch, and started pouring. The house didn't react. It just stood there, watching. Emma lit the match. The flames roared to life, crawling up the walls, licking at the roof. The house groaned. The fire spread. The house screamed. Emma stepped back, watching as the flames consumed it. The house thrashed, and for a split second she swore she heard David's voice. Emma, run. Tears streamed down her face. I love you, she whispered. Then The house collapsed in on itself. The fire burned until nothing remained. 5. The house is never gone. The authorities called it an accident, a gas leak. No one believed Emma's story. No one ever would. And even after she moved far away, she still heard the whispers. In the walls. In her dreams. Emma, run. Because even though the house was gone, it would never stop looking for her, and one day it might find her again.